Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this webinar through the Kauffman Foundation on our capacity building grant pathway. We're thrilled to have you kind of walk through this journey with us. We're going to go through some key components of this second cycle of this grant making. And I kind of want to just say welcome back. If you followed along, we did webinars last fall as we were launching it and it was brand new, and decided to do another round of webinars as we move into this second round of capacity grant building, because there are some things that are new. Some things that we learned, and we wanted to make sure that we were leveraging into those. We've made some adjustments to the application in response to things that we've heard from you. Our goal, we want to make the goals a little bit clearer, make a leaner application that simplifies some of the processes. And there are a few new funding opportunities that are a part of the capacity building grants, which really are designed to be those flexible, near term funding that enables the organization to be positioned to do deeper impact. I am Dr. DeAngela Burns-Wallace. I am the president and CEO of the Kauffman Foundation. And I am joined today by my Chief Impact and Strategy Officer, Allison Greenwood Bajracharya. Here at the foundation, we also have other members of the team that will join us. Kristin Smithson, who is one of our senior impact officers, will be also joining us later in this conversation. Kristin will be the lead on the capacity building grants going forward, and she'll join us to answer a few questions. I want to go over just very quickly the agenda for today. We'll begin by doing a little bit of an overview of our strategic priorities. We always like to start there just to reground in what the work is, why we do the work, and the impact that we're trying to have. I'll turn it over to Allison, and she'll take you through an overview of the capacity building grants, the objectives, the application process, the quality of the applications. And then we'll also end by just sharing a few different other supports where you can ask questions, get information, understand your eligibility, and we will make sure that we save time to take a few questions. So let's hop right into our grant making. One of the things about the work that we have done over the last 18 months has really been to honor the legacy of our founder, Ewing Marion Kauffman. But we also wanted to reflect the needs of our community today. Here you see our 2035 vision that clearly sets Kansas City as someplace that we truly believe can be a model for equitable economic mobility for all. As we work through our strategic refresh and we set on this 2035 vision, one of the things that was clear is that we truly wanted to make sure that we were foregrounding things like systemic barriers, the dismantling of those systemic barriers, and that it was about all communities, irregardless of background, that they could be on a path to prosperity. One of the things that we try to be clear about when we say Kansas City, we do mean a six-county region of Cass, Clay, Jackson, Johnson, Platte, and Wyandotte. But we have also tried to be clear in our grant making that that doesn't mean that you have to be located in one of those counties physically, but it does mean that you have to do work that the activity is impacting or has the potential to impact and can be used within those counties for their prosperity as well. Throughout the year, as we work through our strategic priorities, we try to align what we wrote out as our priorities based on what we heard from the community at the national level, local level, regional level. We layered over research as we start to build the strategies that we believe would be most effective in closing the wealth gaps. As you can see, and if you've been following along on our journey, our priorities sit squarely in three places: college access and completion, ensuring that students not only enroll in college, but also complete their degrees; workforce and career development, at every stage, connecting people with the skills and the opportunities needed to be successful in today's job market, no matter where they are, whether they're starting their career, in the middle of their career, they're transitioning and need to be reskilled. And then entrepreneurship, supporting and sustaining business ownership, supporting new as well as existing businesses that can drive economic growth and job creation, and that are so impactful for individuals, families, and communities in truly being able to build and sustain wealth. We determined that if we concentrate on these three priority areas, and collaborate with key organizations that drive impact in those areas, that we can see movement in closing those economic gaps that persist in our communities, particularly those communities that are particularly for those communities that are below the median income in the Kansas City region. The why behind our priorities is simple yet powerful. We are committed to closing gaps for the most underserved communities. We heard loud and clear that people want us to be more than just a resource. They want a foundation that is engaged, responsive, and deeply connected to community. We believe our priorities reflect the community and that our focus areas really do push into where the needs are. Our focus areas fall into four categories. The first is essential competencies and skills, equipping individuals with the mindsets, the behaviors, the skills that are needed to succeed in both school and careers. Examples can be like we're interested in mentoring and coaching, particularly if it is integrated job and real world learning type of experiences. Project based learning, where students are collaborating, getting their hands in on that real world business challenges, and learning and exploring local employers. Second area around our focus area includes education and employer connection. The connection between the education and our employer communities is key and critical. We have to have pathways that allow students to move to and through, that the educational opportunities are aligned with the workforce opportunities that they are being prepared for. Looking for innovative pathways to join those educational opportunities, and whether that is a degree program, a credentialing program, a training program, to the real employment opportunities that are needed. Our third area is equitable access. Equitable access really plays into thinking about how do we create greater access across all the different areas in which we work. So if we're talking about education, that equitable access may be access to education or access to affordable education. While when we're talking to our entrepreneurs, we may be talking about access to capital. So looking for those barriers that is blocking access, whether it's for learners, workers, entrepreneurs, and looking for innovative ways that is taking down those barriers and bridging gaps. And the fourth is participation and belonging. This is really about cultivating environments where everyone feels seen, valued, and are able to contribute regardless of their background. This is really important because what we know is that individuals, as they access and move into whether it's education, whether it's their career, even as they're standing up businesses, that they must be a part of ecosystems that support and recognize who and what they are and that the value that they bring. These four focus areas apply to all of our available grant types, and more funding information is available online at our Kauffman.org/funding. So we always encourage you to double click down. We're showing you very high levels, but there is much more detail that's available on the website. One of the things that if you've been following along over the last few months is that we do and have provided pathways of different types of grants. We encourage you to go and explore. There are different click throughs where you can learn a little bit more about the different grant types, the type of impact, the type of projects that would align with the different pathways. Today, we have the pleasure of really doubling down and clicking into our capacity building grant. These really are designed to help organizations strengthen their internal operations so that they have greater impact. The applications did open today, and they will be extended through April 4th. I'm actually going to shift now and ask Allison to walk us through a little bit more of the detail around capacity building grants, what's changed since the first time that the grants kicked off, and just some things to think about as you all are considering our capacity grants in this second round. Allison, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Dr. Burns-Wallace. Hi, everyone. It's so great to see you. Again, I'm Allison Bajracharya, Chief Strategy and Impact Officer, and it really is a joy, as Dr. Burns-Wallace mentioned, to be back here sharing with you our next round of grant opportunities. So when we presented last August, and then again September and October, we were really speaking to our overall grant-making strategy and our first round of grants. We've now gone through that cycle. We've opened and closed our capacity grants and announced our first round in the fall. We've opened and closed our collective impact planning process and announced our planning round in late January, and we've opened and closed our projects and research grants and are actively reviewing those proposals. So today we're here to talk about our capacity building grants, and this is our second round, and we're eager to share with you some of the refinements we've made, which are really grounded in this moment and meeting you all where you are. We recognize that for many nonprofits, this is an especially challenging time, and so we try to be mindful of that as we made some refinements. We also solicited your feedback in the last application round and have incorporated that feedback into the process. So before I share some of those refinements, I just want to talk a little bit about bigger picture, the goal of capacity building. So capacity building grants were specifically designed to support strategically aligned organizations in building organizational capacity. Sounds a little bit redundant, but it is intended to be that explicit. We recognize that for so many nonprofit organizations, you may not have the resources you need to address the whole range of capacity building activities that you would really like to achieve and accomplish to realize your full impact. And so in service of our 10-year vision of closing economic mobility gaps in the Kansas City region, we believe that increasing the capacity of organizations that are aligned to our strategic priority areas and our focus areas increases our collective capacity to drive economic mobility. So these are intended as one-time grants. The range is $100,000 to $250,000. The size of these grants is very intentional. So we want you to feel like you can take on something significant that's also achievable in one time that will position you for even greater impact long term. Requested grant amounts should not represent more than 1/3 of your operating budget. And organizations with an annual budget of less than $200,000 probably aren't right for this grant. Again, these are short-term, one-time grants. We don't dictate the term. On average, they're about a year in length. But if your capacity needs are actually shorter in length, let us know. And if they're longer in length, let us know. But these grants are intended to address one-time capacity building needs to position you for even longer and greater impact in the long run. So these are competitive applications. I do want to be clear about that. And not all eligible organizations will receive funding. We will continue to open this grant twice annually. So this is the second round since we relaunched our grant making. It is the first round in 2025, but we will open it again later this summer. So if you aren't quite ready to apply now, that's okay. You can still learn and reflect and then be prepared to apply again in the next round. Again, our full grant opportunities that Dr. DeAngela talked about a minute ago are available online. Okay, so that's a high level what the goals of capacity building grants are. What's different? Again, we did ask for your feedback. We received your feedback, we heard it, and we've tried to be responsive. So we've really tried to streamline the application. We still are asking a number of questions because we need to be able to assess alignment with our strategy and focus areas. But we've tried to simplify those questions, give you a few more drop downs, be clear what we're looking for in terms of word count, in terms of what we're looking for, big picture in terms of budget. We also have tried to be clear about what we mean when we say capacity. So our website has a full list of some examples. It's not exhaustive. But again, to be responsive to this moment, we are excited to share a few new funding opportunities within the capacity list too. So recognizing that we're about a year away from the World Cup, we are naming that if you are an ESO, an entrepreneurial support organization, and you're interested in building support to entrepreneurs for the World Cup, that is an opportunity to apply for a capacity grant. Or if you're looking to build your capacity in this very AI centered world, or you want to just build your knowledge and awareness and start building governance and policies around it, you can apply for a capacity grant to do that. Or if in this moment, your other funding streams are really in question and you just need general operating support, you can also do that. But again, these are one-time asks for one-time needs. So regardless of what you're asking for, we will ask, what is the capacity you're seeking to build? So the application process, similar to the fall, the applications are available on our website as a PDF to download. We definitely encourage you to take a look at those questions so you can brainstorm your responses, align with your teams, and et cetera. And they will help you determine whether this is the right opportunity for you in this moment, or whether there may be another grant application to apply for or another time. The application questions, again, check for mission alignment, organizational history, and capacity to drive on our priorities and focus areas. They also ask about the potential of the identified organization to increase your goal and your long-term achievement, and ultimately, we're seeking to understand the feasibility of your proposal. So you will start by taking the eligibility quiz, and then if you are aligned with the eligibility quiz, you can proceed to the full application, which again is open through April 4th. So what are some examples of organizational capacity initiatives? I mentioned some of the new ones that we're really piloting in 2025 to meet you in this moment. But the list we have on our website and our intent is to be broad. So there is a list, again, that is a more complete list than what you see here, but it is not intended to be exhaustive. We're eager to hear from you, but we do want to share a number of examples so you can understand just the breadth of what we're talking about. So maybe you need some capacity to build a strategic plan, or maybe to think about talent retention, or about fundraising, or strategic planning. Oh, I maybe already said that. About leadership support, recruitment, selection, onboarding for your team. Maybe you want to do a landscape analysis that includes financial modeling. Maybe you're trying to tell your story in new ways. Maybe you're seeking short-term consulting support to build out capacity in new ways related to new programs you're exploring. Maybe you're looking to build out your governance and you need support doing governance training or recruitment. Or maybe you have a leader who needs a sabbatical. This is intended to demonstrate there's a real breadth of range here, and we want to think expansively with you so that you are well positioned to build your organization's capacity so you're even more positioned for great success in the long term. So in a minute, we're going to move to Q&A, and I'm sure there are many questions, and we're here to try to be as responsive as possible. But a couple logistics I just want you to be aware of. So we have this webinar today. We are recording it. We will share it broadly. So if you have peers you'd like to take a look at it, please encourage them to do so. Participating or attending the webinar is not required to apply for a grant. So I just want you and your teams to know that as well. That being said, we anticipate there may be follow-up questions. So similar to last cycle, we are not going to give specific organizations one-off guidance or feedback to your specific request, but we do want to make sure all the high-level questions, clarity around the application, clarity around alignment are answered. And so if you don't hear your questions answered today, and you don't see them on online on our FAQs, please join us for office hours. We're going to offer 2 office hour sessions. One is next week on March 12th, in person, assuming this blizzard keeps moving through here, at the Merck Co-op. And then again, we'll do one on April 1st via Zoom, just to ensure if you're not here physically, you can also participate. Finally, I did also want to mention just the next grant making windows. So I mentioned capacity grant. This grant will be open twice throughout the year. So again, this is our second cycle since we started and relaunched our grant making last September. It's the first cycle for 2025. So we will have another cycle open again this summer. So if you're not ready now, that's okay. You can keep learning and thinking and apply again this summer. Our collective impact grant, we are currently supporting our planning grantees now, and we will open the planning grant opportunity again in the fall, and we'll move to implementation grants next year. For project grants and research grants, we're currently reviewing applications that were submitted in the first round. We will make those announcements in Q2 of this year, and then we'll open up those opportunities again this summer. And then finally, I want to name our sunset grants. So when we rolled out our sunset grants, the goal was to offer one-time funding to organizations who no longer see strategic alignment with our priority areas, who've received at least 3 years of funding in the last 5 years through the typical grant-making process. And if you are in that category and you want to apply for one-time funding to help you transition to other revenue streams, you can do that through our sunset grant. When we opened it in late August of this year, we said we were going to close the sunset window at the end of March. We've actually decided to extend it through June, just recognizing again, everyone is operating in a little bit of an evolving landscape. And so if you aren't sure if you're aligned, if you're really not sure how to proceed and you want to apply for a capacity grant and then ultimately realize you aren't aligned, you could still apply for sunset as long as we do so by June 30th, 2025. All right, I'm going to pause there. Again, we have lots of information on our website. We will, in a minute, pivot to questions, but we also have upcoming office hours, and you can always email us to ask follow-up questions, and they'll put the email address in the chat. Thanks, y'all. Really appreciate you being here and looking forward to hearing your questions.
All right. So I am going to moderate the questions. We are pulling questions and kind of, there's a team in the background that are trying to summarize and pull kind of groups of questions together so that we can get through as many as possible. I will field a couple, but mostly I'll try to pitch them to Allison and Kristin so that they can answer these questions. What I will say is, I always say on these webinars, I have 3 screens in front of me. I am trying to read and synthesize and push questions out. So if I ever like wrinkle my face or squint or kind of look crazy, please know that's because I'm trying to read and not in response to anything that is being said at the moment. So let's get started. I saw something dropped in the chat, but Allison, I just like for you to again talk a little bit about, there's still questions just around geography. Please clarify if out-of-state organizations can apply for the capacity grants. Are we specifically looking to fund organizations only in a certain region? If you want to just kind of hit that one more time.
Yeah, I definitely think this is our most frequently asked question throughout all of our cycles, so I'm happy to say it and say it again for sure. And if you have feedback on how we make it clear, please let us know. But as you heard, our vision is to make Kansas City a national model for equitable economic mobility by 2035. In order to do that, we are foregrounding impact in Kansas City. So for capacity grants, we are definitely prioritizing organizations that are based in Kansas City in the 6 counties that Dr. DeAngela listed, and that will also be in the chat. If you're not in Kansas City, but you have ways of making impact in Kansas City, or you're exploring ways to make impact in Kansas City because Kansas City partners have said, we want you to explore this, then name that for us. In the first cycle, we had 85% of our grants based in Kansas City and 15% who were not. Just to give you a sense, like this is not exclusively for organizations in Kansas City, but it is for organizations who are actively or potentially making impact in Kansas City.
Talking about different grant types. So there's, kind of different questions that we're getting around, can we apply for multiple grant types? For example, can we apply for a capacity grant now and then apply for a project grant in upcoming cycles? And then the question, kind of a follow-on is there an opportunity to meet with someone maybe to figure out, to make sure that we're applying for the right grant or that we understand which ones that might be best situated? So Kristin, would you like to take that one? I'll pull you into this conversation.
Sure, I'd love to. And thanks again for having me here. The advice we always give grantees is that we would really like to see an organization focus on one grant at a time. There are just a couple of exceptions to that. So if you're a large organization, like a university, there may be situations where you would hold or apply for more than one grant type. The other example is if for our collective impact planning. For example, you're a part of a coalition, but not the lead member of a coalition for that grant type. That might also be an example of a time where you might be able to also apply for capacity building projects, research, that sort of thing. If you have a current grant, we would like that grant to be closed before you apply for capacity building in this round, at least prior to the date when those get awarded, which would be about mid-June is what we're looking at.
And then Dr. D, I can answer the second part of the question. So our grant making process is different in this new refresh strategy than it was historically. And our goal is really to get the information out and cast a wide net. So as many organizations that are aligned with our strategies and our focus areas and our foregrounding Kansas City as possible can have the opportunity to apply. That means we're not able to meet with individual organizations one-on-one to provide that specific guidance. But again, we do have a number of opportunities where you can attend and join us and hear some high-level feedback or guidance if you may be grappling with one grant over another. So if you're in that situation, we encourage you to join our office hours. And again, we have our upcoming grant windows posted online, so you can also get a sense of like what makes most sense for where you are right now and how you are thinking about impact, timeline, and scale.
So this question is focused kind of on one of the new kind of areas, the general operating. And so it asks, can you give an example of when general operating capacity would be appropriate? And the question goes on to ask, would this opportunity relate to funds lost due to federal level changes? Allison, I'm gonna kick that one to you.
Yeah, so this is exactly the impetus of the general operating context. Again, we want anybody who applied for this grant to do so in the context of capacity. But if you've lost funding due to the evolving federal landscape and you need to close a gap right now so that you continue to build your organization's capacity and identify other revenue streams, you can apply for a capacity grant and you'll have a drop-down box that says, which capacities are you seeking to build? And you may say general operating. And you may also say and talent, or you may just say general operating. And then we'll just ask for a brief narrative response on what does that look like and why, so we can understand the context. But it is intended to be that flexible. And again, it's a one-time opportunity, so I just want to reinforce that so people understand that we really do want to meet you where you are and recognize that this is a challenging moment for several nonprofits.
And I think you kind of answered the next question because it asked, can my organization apply to build more than one type of capacity? And you just said that with that drop down, you're able to click more than one area. Is that correct?
You can. Yep, absolutely. I think we have 3 options. So if you want to do general operating and talent, or if you're looking to work on fundraising and storytelling and governance, you can select those. And then we just want to see, again, your budget at a very high level, but how the line items correspond to that.
Let's do a couple of rapid fires. Is this round open to applicants who were declined in the first round? See those nods? That is a yes. All right. Can organizations who have a fiscal sponsor apply?
Absolutely. It may take a little bit longer. We'll have some processes to go through, but absolutely, we are open to that.
I will just say the only restrictions are that capacity grants are for nonprofits that are pursuing charitable purposes. So if you are a nonprofit through a fiscal sponsor, that's absolutely acceptable. And as Kristin said, it just may be a slightly longer process.
Let's see. If our operating budget is less than $200K per year, can we still apply? If not, are there opportunities available for smaller nonprofits?
I can go ahead and take that too. So what we have acknowledged is that in most instances, the grant size should be no more than 1/3 of your organizational budget. At this point, we've published online that if you have an organizational budget of less than 200,000, this probably isn't the right grant pathway for you. I also want to acknowledge that we do offer sponsorships available. That information is on our website. And we have a listing of other intermediaries and organizations that may have pathways that would be better fit for organizations of that size.
I will also just add on that, that is an answer that's intentional because we can't be all things to all people, but we recognize there's absolutely a need to support organizations with a budget under 200,000. And so within our project grants, we explicitly said we are looking to support intermediaries that are well positioned to give grants, and for those organizations that are looking for wraparound support to organizations with smaller budgets. And so we're thinking about that. We are focused on that, and you will see opportunities play out through our project grants in this cycle and future cycles to support that.
Us moving, more questions are coming in. Let's talk a little bit about reporting requirements. And so the question is, what will reporting requirements look like for this grant? Are there specific performance metrics to meet for the grant, or are they grantee defined?
I can take that one as well. The reporting on this is really intended to be not a burden to grantees, and it's really focused on how you as an organization will know if you've built the capacity you've set out to do. And so we'll ask questions, really as a result of your increased capacity, what will be new, better, and different? And how do you know that you had the impact that you intended to? There's always also some reporting just on how you spent the funds. And so that's something we'll look at as well. But it's a pretty simple process focused really on your own organization and what your goals were.
There's also some optional opportunities because we are on this mission to achieve our vision, that there's some data we are actively tracking. And so if you're also actively tracking that data and want to share that through this opportunity, great. If you're not, no pressure at all. We really are looking to you to talk about what performance looks like. You will have an impact officer assigned to you who will check in to see how it's going. You may also have an evaluation officer from Dr. Yvonne Ferguson's research, learning, and evaluation team join as well, depending on how you articulated your outcomes.
Allison, there's a couple of questions. They're asking about, they're in process either with, one question is around, I'm in the last phase of a current capacity building grant. Can we reapply? Another one is I'm in the process of, I've applied for a project grant and it hasn't been decision, should I shift and apply to the capacity grant? So if you could address those, they're slightly different, but it's that they're in progress and in play with other grants, either currently holding one or waiting to hear about one, and just kind of a little bit of guidance and that organizations may want to think around.
Okay, great. So as Kristin mentioned, by and large, we really want to have organizations applying and focusing on one grant at a time. So if you are a capacity grantee from the first round and your capacity grant extends through this year or beyond June, then you should really wait until the next round to apply again, either for a different capacity or a different grant opportunity. However, if your capacity and your grant term is actually going to finish by June, which is when we'll announce the grantees for this, you can apply. I think there's a very small handful that sort of meet those criteria, but I just wanted to name that because, again, we're really focused on having one grant to one organization at a time, with the exception of really large organizations. If that's not clear, because it is confusing, feel free to follow up and we'll make sure you get clarity there. For the project grants, so we are actively reviewing those now, and we are really committed to having follow-up responses late April, early May, which doesn't correspond perfectly with this timeline, unfortunately. So if you ultimately decide, for whatever reason, you'd prefer to apply for capacity, let us know you'd like to rescind your project grant and apply. But we also encourage you, if you can, to wait and hear more from us through the project round, knowing that the next capacity round will open again in late summer. So don't want to tell you specifically what to do because I know everyone's context is slightly different, especially in this current moment. And so if you would actually prefer to focus on capacity, that's fine, reach out. But also know that you will hear more about projects in Q2 And if for some reason they don't play out in your favor, there will be another capacity grant round and another project round opening this summer.
All right, a couple of additional questions here. We're making good progress through these. There's a question about can program enhancement expansion include capital, i.e. physical capacity building? And I can take this one as I try to move us through a couple. So we do not fund into the brick and mortar through our grant pathways. And there is actually on the website, I think it's in the frequently asked questions, that identifies a handful of areas that we don't, and that is one of those. And so maybe we can get that link dropped in to so that people can check those out if there are other areas. There is a question, as we brought up AI as a kind of a new opportunity. There's a question of if we anticipate that the AI opportunity will still be available for the fall application. I don't know if you all can speculate on that, but it sounds like someone may be thinking about a future round and want to know if AI will still be a priority.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think AI is going away, so my sense is it probably will be an ongoing priority. We named it in projects in the first round, really looking at how our organization's thinking about AI to close access gaps. So it is already incorporated into some of our other grants as well. So it is new this cycle, and that we're naming it. It will most likely continue. Some things change, but my sense is most likely it'll continue to be there.
Kristin, there's a question just around just time frame. So is there a required time frame for the project start and end dates?
Absolutely, great question. These capacity grants are going to look different based on the organization's own needs. And so we don't do a lot of dictating what that looks like. It could be 6 to 8 months for some organizations, and it could be a year or a little bit longer for others. What we have put into the application is just the general guidance that it probably shouldn't be more than 2 years. And so we do have some dates within the application just to give you a sense of when funding will be available and kind of an outer guardrail for that. But just acknowledging that you all will be the experts of this work. And so we would defer to you and look that your implementation plan is realistic.
Question is, if you are a national organization serving other cities, do you need to have a history of serving Kansas City, or can part of the capacity grant be used to expand services to the region in the future? You want to take that?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So again, last round, 15% of our capacity grants went to organizations outside of Kansas City. I think most of those were national organizations. So we recognize, we have a lot of assets here. We don't have everything, and we are looking for new ways to close our mobility gaps and make sure we have economic mobility for all. So if you are one of those organizations that really elevating best practices in other regions, and you're exploring capacity in Kansas City, you can apply. I will say we will especially prioritize organizations that have already partnered or have already actually heard demand and interest from the Kansas City region for that.
So a couple of questions around mission alignment. So this first one is, how closely should organizations align with the priority areas? Can a case be made in proposals, or should it be central to the organization's mission and historical service?
We generally want to see that an organization's work and mission is aligned with the strategic priorities we put out: college access and completion, workforce and career development, and entrepreneurship. That being said, we have included an opportunity in the application to acknowledge that the capacity you're looking to build is actually to strengthen that alignment. And so we are certainly open to exploring that. And you will have the opportunity to kind of make the case as to how this will strengthen your alignment while also still serving your own mission. So I think that's a key piece to elevate.
Different kind of mission related question. This one is actually from a for-profit company. Are for-profit companies that are fully aligned with the foundation's missions and goals qualified to apply? Allison, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so we do program-related investment grants in our project grant context. We're not able to do so in our capacity grant context. So if you're in that boat and you're mission aligned, we encourage you to explore our project grants or even being a coalition member in future collective impact opportunities. But capacity grants are really focused on nonprofits, focused on charitable purposes.
This is a question that asks, do you have examples of which data topics you are focused on currently? That is how the question is posed. We may need
I don't think we have specifics on that. You're definitely welcome to look at the list of round one grantees and their sort of summary statement. But again, I wouldn't let that make you feel like you have to be really narrow in how you're thinking about data. You know, if data is needed, if you need to build out your data, if you need to track data, if you need to develop data sets or learn from other organizations how they're collecting data, you know, to help build your capacity so that you are continuing to grow your impact as it relates to economic mobility, then just tell us that.
We do have a few minutes left. I am going through the list, making sure I grabbed these. One of the things I just want to just remind people, we mentioned the office hours. We always watch the capacity of them. They do fill up. So continue to check back. And sometimes we're able to add additional office hours or opportunities. We also continuously update the frequently asked questions if there are particular questions that we are seeing come in over and over. There was a comment that was, just trying to receive a little bit of feedback to tighten up or refocus applications for this cycle if they were a previous applicant who was not awarded. And so those office hours give an opportunity to talk through the strength of application and things that are seen, things that help an application be successful. So that office hours is really where you want to engage to kind of get that overall feedback of the strength of applications that we see. I think I see one more. And my Q&A team, I see one more open. And if I miss one, please send it back to me. The one I am going to grab is the college access. It says they say you are good. So that's a good sign. You should see the number of questions that flutter through, and I'm trying to go through and make sure we're not missing any. So this particular question is, does college access and completion include programs like early childhood education as a predictor for future academic success? Allison, do you want to grab that?
Yeah, I would say we would want to see a really clear articulation of your theory of change in connection to college access and completion, and make the case for why you're building capacity in that way to get to our goals of closing gaps in access and completion rates. And we will consider it in a larger portfolio of proposals. So, it doesn't necessarily traditionally align, but there can be cases made, and we want to hear that case.
One of the other things I would say is that when we look at areas like early childhood education, that is an area that is also, we know in our region, has deep workforce needs. And so there's work around pipelining and early exposure to increase the number of early childhood educators, and have some work that has been done in that space as well. And so there are various ways to be able to support early childhood education work in our region. And one of those can come from that pathway of college access and completion, but it also can come through the pathways of creating a workforce that is able to deliver quality childhood education, as well as a very high percentage of early childhood educators and facilities that are in our region are also entrepreneurs, and we support work in that space as well to grow their capacity and their needs in relationship to the ecosystems that support around those organizations as local entrepreneurs. So I think part of our work is we really look holistically at the idea of college access and workforce and entrepreneurship. Some of those cross in different ways, and we don't want to interpret things in one way. And we are, with this particular grant, really try to give the organization the opportunity to tell us where they are and what their needs are, and how they can grow and strengthen their capacity. The one thing I will remind is that you can download the application before you hop into it. That'll give you a good sense of what we're looking for and the questions that we're having. And we have heard feedback that was very helpful as organizations were preparing for their applications. Right. I believe we have covered the list of kind of summary questions that have been pulled, and we are at time, and we want to be mindful of that. We are excited that we're able to open this grant opportunity so quickly after its original launch last fall. We know that there's interest and support here. We had a large number of registrants for this webinar today and know that that will continue. We are hoping that we are being responsive in the moment by ensuring that we can continue to offer these capacity grants this spring and again with another round this fall. We look forward to reviewing all of these amazing grant applications and working with you in the future. Please check out the website. Please join us for office hours if you have additional questions. Send an email. We are constantly making sure that we're providing that feedback as real time as we can. Thank you to my colleagues, Allison and Kristin, and for our entire team on the back end that helps to make this production smooth. We appreciate you joining us today, and we hope that you have a good rest of your week.